I will click the record button. Thank you. What would I do without you guys? All right, so I called it Prep for Final Loose Ends. And if we go into the homework and the quiz isn't posted. It's going to be posted after today. And it's going to be a little bit of combination of talking and reviewing AutoCAD information and possibly questions just about the final project to make sure you're retaining what I'm asking of you. So the final drawing set, I have attached here an example of what I'm looking for in your final presentation. I'm going to go ahead and open this PDF. So big, pea size. All right, so this is what I'm looking for from your AutoCAD side of the final. You have a site plan, which we have set up. The only thing that is different from the site plan than before is I have added the sheet numbering. So I did S1, S stands for site plan, and 1. There's only one drawing. For your sheets, oftentimes different letters denote different things. So we'll talk through the letters as I scroll through this PDF to give you an understanding of what you do for a contract design, or really it could be for residential too, to use the different lettering. A lot of time, if it's a really small project, people will just stick with A, A1, A2, A3. That means architectural. But if you can delineate the different types of pages, so site specifically is one that they'll break off. Electrical has its own letter, of course it's E, so pretty intuitive. And then architectural can include the reflected ceiling plan, any detailed drawings. Sometimes they'll break out interiors drawings, so specifically elevations could fall on an I set or on an A set, but that really depends on your contractor and the way that they set up their drawings. It can vary, but I just want you to have an understanding that these sheet symbols are very important to your drawing. So there's the S1. Eventually when you turn it in, you're going to want to make sure all the dates are the same on each of your pages. So if that's actually the 5th that you go through and number them all again, or if you finish your final early for any reason and want to submit it, then you can go ahead and put the date for that on each of the sets. I want them to be matching, because usually you turn your drawing set into the contractor all at the same time. So I don't want 417 on this sheet and 410 on the next sheet. If I did that on you because I was working on yours, ignore. Okay, so this is set up at 3/16 equals 1 foot. I'm pretty sure you have it set up like this. So again, very easy first sheet. Just add this text and update the date. Here we have our floor plan. You'll notice I have added in my bathroom blocks and my kitchen blocks. And in addition to that, tonight we're going to be talking about our section symbols and our detail symbols and what plans those belong on and what the significance of their numbering is. So again, same thing on this sheet. Notice I've added A1 for architectural drawing 1. It's the first of the A set, and I put the date to match the date on the first page. Let me zoom out really quick. Control minus minus. Here's my furniture plan. So it's A2, just part of my architectural set, and I have the date to match it as well. This is at a 1/4 inch scale. I have updated it to have my kitchen blocks and my bath blocks and my layout. For the all other students, even 115, unless you copied this somehow verbatim based off of what I used from the model, I understand there will be variance in this area and what's in it, as well as in your master bedroom. And if you decided to change the bathroom, that's fine. Just make sure that it shows up on this plan. But really, this is what you should have finished for last week's homework. I want to zoom in here because it's weird that there's these little extra lines which aren't in my actual AutoCAD drawing, I don't believe. There you go, I have to really push the button. So for instance, these weird hatching problems shouldn't be showing up, but we can talk through those if anyone else has those. I'm not going to kill you on deducting points for stuff like that, but if we can resolve it before the final, please do contact me because it might be -1 point. I'll have to -1 point from myself. Zoom out. The next set is going to be the reflected ceiling plan. You'll notice some changes. This will be one we're updating this week to be more accurate with our drawing set as a whole and follow through with the electrical items, the ceiling cans that cross through that ceiling plane. So any type of lighting that is actually recessed into the ceiling cuts through it. You're going to show that on your reflected ceiling plan as well as your mechanical plan. So that's why it's going to show up on both. I think I only required you to start working on it on your mechanical plan. And so we can easily copy these items over minus my pendant lighting. And if you have any pendant lightings, those don't count. They're not cutting through the plane. And even my ceiling fan doesn't necessarily count because it just has the stem that's attaching to the ceiling, but it's not actually cutting into the ceiling itself. All right, so then I added the walls in. You'll notice that I left them unhatched. We do this because it allows us to see our door headers. We don't show the doors on this plan because it's only the reflected ceiling, so we'll just show the headers and the openings of the doors completely closed. And then I left it unhatched so you could see the headers. Another possibility when doing a set could be to hatch this and hatch the headers in a different type of hatching style than you would use for the actual walls, but this is all I'm requiring for our project. Okay, and then I've just moved these lines down a little bit so they were more into this room, and then where it breaks at the wall I've trimmed out the line here and here for the ceiling line. It's still sloped, we've just created walls in between there. All right, notice it says A3. Again, here's A2. One second, I have a question from in class. Mm-hmm. Oh, I get it. The words look sloped and different things like that. Well, Gabe is asking for 108 where they've done a lot more changes to their ceiling. I know some people did lowered coffered ceilings. Some people have added beams in locations. How are you remedying that within your own drawing set for this class? So for the 115 students, obviously I'll be in class next week, although Cheryl should be a good source to tell you how to modify the plans for what you're creating in your class. You'll only need to show that sloped. Let me go back to it, or forward really. The sloped flat in one location if you've modified every ceiling, so now there's tiles in here and there. You could do a leader line with the note saying flat ceiling and then slope pointing out just the sections to the side. I would accept a leader line. All right, so notice here again I see the continuation of my A set, so A3, and oh, it didn't do the date to match the other page, so that's something you want to be looking for. We should still be at the 1/4 inch scale for these drawings, with the exception of the site plan, which was just too big to fit on the page, so again it's 3/16. S1, A1, A2, A3. All right, so moving forward, here are the cutout mechanical plans, lighting plans for your kitchen and your master bedroom and bath. Kitchen, dining, master bedroom, and bath. We're going to go over today hiding the viewport frame so you don't see it and only cutting off this portion of your plan. And also, it's very subtle, but you'll notice that I have grayed out my cabinetry on these plans so that my ceiling lighting jumps forward and is very obvious. I'm going to teach you how to gray out your furniture that's set on the floor plan only within the viewport so that when you go into your actual model space it's always black, but when you go to print this drawing, it's on, and it allows you to have one drawing with everything on it that we just control our layers instead of having 5 drawings copied. So we'd have one that was our furniture, one that was our mechanical and lighting. We don't want to do that. We want to keep as much as we can and control the layers instead. All right, so here's our legend, which we would have worked on this week. We'll talk about dashing the lines. I know we had them as solid. I've seen it done both ways, but I'm going to go back to my default of dashing them. It's easier to read. And then this scale, you'll notice, is at 1/2 inch equals 1 foot. So that's a little different than the other plans. I really want you to zoom in, especially if you were doing kitchen and bath. All of those drawings are at 1/2 inch if they can fit on a page for a project. So I want you to practice that and get ready if you ever take that as a future class, but also to just get in the habit of changing through the scales in your AutoCAD. And it helps fill up this large D-size print instead of having a big empty space with just a little tiny drawing on it. All right, so I'm going to be asking, oh, here you see my E2, because this is more to do with electrical and mechanical. And then if you zoom into each of these, you'll be able to see the text that I'm hoping for. Lighting, mechanical, kitchen, and dining room. That's what I'm looking for this space. And then the other one says lighting, mechanical, master bedroom, master bath. And E2. And E1 is here. So here's your master bedroom, master bath. I understand your lighting could be slightly different, but again, it's more, to me, what I'm looking for is clean. It cuts off the room nicely. We don't have extraneous things outside of this room shown in the plan. The fixtures are in black, and your cabinetry and any type of floor elements are in gray. I wanted to mention that for the example I did on video, I didn't have all my receps in, so just be conscious of making sure you have enough receps for a person's room and space. I'll be looking that you've added, or if you need to add any more from your homework and my critique of that I'll probably grade tomorrow. Make sure you do add them in if you don't have enough lighting or don't have enough receps. Here's our building section. So really, I'm going to want this box off, so I'm going to write a note to myself. I had thought about keeping it on just because it helps fill, but if I'm going to train you to turn the rest off, might as well turn the building section off. So I'll write my own note, and then I'll re-update the PDF. It's a quick fix section. But notice the scale, it's at 1/4 inch. And in reality, a building section and all sections, even if it's cabinetry, we'd like to have it at 3/4 inch scale equals a foot. That's the standard. Obviously for our size of drawing, 3/4 inch was just way off to the border, leaving about a 1/2 inch of space around, which wasn't awful. But it also meant because we did this text in model space and paper space that it disappeared, and I didn't want you to have to deal with that for this week. So I'm fine with keeping it at 1/4 inch for our project. Details. This is what your final details are going to look like. We are adding in the text this week and the dimensioning. I tried to keep the dimensioning simple. We're going to talk about bringing in different dimensioning styles again via the Design Center or also by copying things over from other drawings. Oh, here's your stair detail. Allison, you promised us we weren't going to have that much homework and we're working towards our final. Correct. I'm giving you this whole drawing without any dimensioning and any of these call-outs, the leader lines, and any type of information in the corner as to the scale and drawing. So this entire stair, all of the CAD work I've done for you, you will simply label and dimension it. So that shouldn't take as long. I hope that you appreciate that little bit of help as we approach the final. So let's see. Just want to check the chat really quick. Looks like we are good to go. All right, so here's my final set. I hope that it's not too overwhelming. You see I finished this off with an A5 and then zooming in. And this is available to you on your Blackboard to use as a reference. So I think that will be very helpful as we approach the final. Here I have detailed drawings as my project. Here I'd update the date. They should all be the same. Mine have varied, so I have that as a note in my new PDF. I want to get it as close because I know some of you are real literal about everything in life. So we're going to make sure that it's as close to what you're doing as possible, so it's not a complete copy as you've chosen different furniture, but for the really difficult things such as the details, it's more about the drawing process than it is about thinking about why we do something. Although I'm going to cover why because I don't want you to miss out on that, and I want you to have a little bit of a head start as you go into other classes. All right, for this one you'll notice I say scale varies. All right, that's because I have these at 3/4 inch scale sections, and then this stair side view, it was a good scale for my detail. It's a bigger detail, so 3/4 was fine. But for the smaller details, such as a mantle, if you ever do a baseboard or molding, anything very small, you want to go into that 1 1/2 inch detail scale. So make sure that you put varies instead of putting 3/4, although the majority are 3/4, and then they'll reference the scale above in the label section under the drawing. So let's go ahead and go back out to Blackboard. Oh, I'm already on it. I just need to skip over to the class. Okay, stair, detail, need, dimension, and text. It downloads, if I am you, the student. This is that file that I'm telling you I gave you the entire stair. I did not make it a block because you can copy it easy enough by using your crossing window, and then you can use your clipboard and copy in the upper right hand corner, copy clip, and paste it into your drawing. And really I wanted it to be easier to mention. Sometimes blocks are harder until you explode them, and if you're just going to explode it anyway, I might as well give it to you as it is and just have you copy it with how it's going to end up being. So here I've given you everything on the stair, and there should have been one more little thing in here. If there's not, I'm going to copy it over really quick and re-upload it. I can talk about the dimensioning while I'm headed that way. So if I come into my details, you'll notice I have two different types of dimensioning. There's all types of dimensioning, as we saw when we set up our dimensions, which are a little different than I'm used to. You can have the tick marks, you can have arrows, you can have dots. So here I have the tick marks, the architectural tick marks, and then here I have the arrows. I don't have an example of the dots. You can have things that the text sits atop the dimension like this, or it can fall in between. And I wonder, we don't really have any dimensions left on ours, but the text could cut through the actual measurement line instead of sitting atop the line. So with that, I was trying to find a good dimension size to do these smaller details where the dimension didn't get lost. And I ended up finding a good one from a fellow designer who says that she went to a different school where they give you a series of dimensions that are available to use. And this one specifically is set up for the 3/4 inch scale. So if I go into annotation, you'll see DIM 96 for 3 to 4 scale. And that made it very easy to show up clearly in my model space and in my paper space, and I could dimension it in either without it disappearing on me. So I am going to copy this, and then I also have another dimension set. This drawing is so small that the dimensions lose their arrows no matter what, and at a certain point you just can't set it to have arrows because it is so tiny. So what I mean is here, this is the same dimension up here as is being used here, but because the text falls between the line, it suppresses the arrows so they disappear, which is fine. It's still readable and it's totally valid. It just is a good text size that's smaller for this smaller detail. So I'm also going to copy that one. And I want to use my clipboard up here in the upper right. And then I'm going to go into that drawing that I'm supplying you with. And this is just good practice for copying clipboard, as you'll need to use it this week to copy clipboard your stair. So then I'm going to paste, and I've brought in those dimensions. And what that means is by copying the dimensions, it should have ended up bringing in dim 96 for 3 to 4 scale, and also detail drawing, which is this one right here. Okay, so I'm going to save this as, cancel, wanted to close out on me. I'm going to put it on my desktop and quickly upload it for you again. Stair detail needs dimension and text. Save. So I just saved you a step, but what I wanted to remind you of is so now when you copy this into your boathouse, you can copy these dimensions and then have them in your boathouse. They will show up. Another way you could have done it if you did not have these dimensions, or if I had just given you the dimensions and you weren't going to copy them, is I could have my boathouse drawing open and pretend the dimensions don't exist. I could have the stair detail drawing open with the dimensions in it, and I could go to Insert, Design Center, and under the Design Center, this is where, again, we have open drawings, and you can see the two I have open, Session 14, and it gives me all of the different things that I have within my drawing and have set up. My blocks, my dimension styles. So that shows me all the blocks within my model. I could copy these blocks by dragging them into my other drawing. And that's what I would do with my dim style. I could take it and open over here the actual drawing and drag and drop it in, and you can see there's a square over to the left where my mouse is. The square is telling me I successfully dropped it in. I think it's clearer if I use a block. There you go. I'm dropping and dragging from different drawings. So you could have crossed over with your dimension style that way. And the same thing with your blocks. It's a good way to look at a billion blocks at once from another drawing that you liked, or maybe you want to copy certain areas. Have the other one open, and then you could come in and drop them into the stair. You could have a sofa. Now notice there's a difference in scale. So then you would have to scale this item using your scale tool. You can make it bigger, but you should be able to make it smaller. Let's see, 0.5. All right, yeah, you could just type in the smaller ones, 0.75, until you go down and down and down. And then once it gets a little bit smaller, it should let you use the scale to just make it smaller or bigger. There you go. So then it keeps getting smaller until you have it how you want to have it. So just keep that in mind. If you want to go between two drawings and have different pieces, you could either use the copy clipboard or you could use the Design Center and open up both drawings and drag and drop. Okay, so session 14. We're going to be looking at the fact that I added text and dimensioning to my drawing. So I know you added your leader lines. I will tell you that since I added in my dimensions, I had to pull the leader lines out a little bit, so I know you probably had them set in closer by referencing my PDF or the video. And because of that, you'll just have to adjust this a little bit. No big deal. I did, for specifically one student, Nicole Catlett, I said something to you the other day when we were talking about your drawing for kitchen and bath, and you said, why is the text here and then not there? I wondered if, while I'm doing this class, if you could check and see if your scale within your model space is at 1:1. Because mine happened to be at 1/8 the other day, and it took all that hidden text that was disappearing and put it back on the screen when I went back into 1:1, which is what all of ours should be set at. So if yours is not currently set to 1:1, it should have been, and it should be. So go ahead and reset it in the lower right-hand corner. And that helps with all of our text issues and having to figure out the specific sizing a little bit better. All right, so I want to talk about what this symbol is telling me. So we talked about the A's versus the E's. It's architectural versus electrical versus site plan, and there could be even more. There could be hundreds of more drawings and different references. But for mine, I have A5. This is telling the architect or contractor what page this can be found on and what order of detail it is. Is it the first on the sheet? Is it one of how many on a sheet? Or is it the second or third on the sheet? I did want to show you that when you get into contract design or a more advanced class, these become very important as there's lots of drawings that you're going to be working with. So, I don't want to open it that way. These are PDFs, but they're coming in as Word files. So I'll say open with Adobe Reader. All right, here's an example of a contract class of a student that I know. And well, this is hand drawing. She has 2 sets. Open with Adobe Reader. All right, so she did Bells and Bows Boutique. And it gets very convoluted with all of the information, so it becomes more important that we have our section detail markers, our signage or door schedule. Here you see D5, here's a door schedule symbol. If we have any type of circles that are calling out, we can then reference what page they're on easily from the floor plan. All right, so here you see architectural floor plan, and then here you see a bunch of these circles. So this is telling me that on page 1A5, I would then be able to find a section view and elevation of this cabinetry here. All right, so let's see. I know she has a drawing that was useful to me to show this as a set. So here you have 2 A6, and here you can see she has 1 A6 as the plan, and really this should be 2 A6, the label in here. I've been going hard on her. She's a coworker, and she was getting her 2-year degree and went back, and so I've been finding little mistakes. But this would be 2 A6 in here, so you'd show the plan, and then what you're referencing on the plan with your detail. So for us, I've added to your homework to add to your floor plan the section symbol here, which is 1A, and then this needs to reference whatever we decide our detail is going to be. So I think it was A5. Let's see. I can tell by looking down here. If I go to my detail drawing, and they changed just before here because I originally had all architectural sheets, and then I decided I wanted to show you the variants. So here's A5, and now it's on the right sheet. So then I referenced that there. So I would easily be able to look at the floor plan first, which should come as this second drawing in your plan set, see this symbol, and know if I refer to A5 sheet, then I have the first one being my cabinet section showing the drawing that I'm trying to reference. All right, so I hope that helps clear up any confusion that you might have had in the past with exactly what these symbols function as or how they're used. Now they can be used in a number of different ways, and this is what this class is about, but I want you to know why you're doing things. So I could have an instance where I have my mantle section and side view as just whatever drawing they are on the sheet. So just how I have it now. 1 is a section, then 2 is the side view, 3 is the section, and then 4 is the side view. So that means there's some details and some sections, but they're just in order of how they're placed on the page. I could also have it that I have over 50 sections. You know, for some reason I have a really large hospital. And in that case, when you start to get hundreds and 50 or plus sections and details, sometimes they'll separate all the sections out on their own sheet, and they'll separate all the details out on another, in which case the number signifies what detail it is or which section it is, and still just the number on the sheet. But it's not always that you have both sections and details on one plan together. A lot of times contractors will request that you separate them out. Sometimes you'll have it that I showed you that 3-view one time of a cabinet where they'll have the plan view and then off to the sides they show how it's being built. So they'll have a side view, a front view, and a back view, and a section, all for just this mantle on one sheet. So there's a bunch of different ways to do it, but they all really refer to the number of the drawing as shown on the sheet, and then the sheet that's being called out. And then you always give your scale on the bottom, and then what is being presented on the top. All right, so let's go back to our model sheet, and I have a printout. Let me pull up my notes of some notes that I had for you on what I was looking for. All right. So I'm creating a rubric, and I want you to know that going forward, the rubric that I post for this session, and I'll probably post it tomorrow, I have an outline. I just don't know how much I want to go towards the final of certain things, and I do want to supply you with the outline. But what I post for the homework, if you looked at 14, is the final. There's not going to be any more homework besides your final from this point on. And I'm just expecting you to add this work. So I'm expecting the work that I'm showing you tonight to be part of your final and you do it. So it'll be within it that it says completed lighting plan. And that means that it matches my set. So the understanding is everything from here on out is you completing the set to match mine. All right, there will be a rubric that lays it out. Things that I've noticed in your drawings that I wanted you to think about for this week are lighting and electrical. Add any missing symbols. I haven't graded that homework yet, but that was where I thought if some of you were copying my plan or even in 108 just hadn't planned very well and you don't have a receptacle at the desk area or one by the bed where their cell phone could go, or multiple ground fault circuit interrupters so she could do her hair here and there. Just be thoughtful about your layouts. I will be looking for that and checking to make sure no room is devoid of them. Put cabinets on the gray layer in paper space by color changing the viewport. Okay, so this is for your homework this week and going towards the final. If we go in to our, oh boy, interesting. Sorry, I just had a moment. Okay, so if we go into our furniture plan, it's so hard to tell in these PDFs, but actually the lines are showing up as black. They feel gray, but they're really showing up as black. At least they should be. And if they aren't showing up as black, then what I did is I had put my cabinetry for the kitchen and my cabinetry and bath and anything that's set on the floor for the bath on a layer, and I called it, I believe, just kitchen and bath. So if I double click in my view, which I have all of my views locked at the appropriate scales. Make sure yours are locked so you don't lose them when you're working on them double clicked into the view. Okay, so I'm double clicked in here. I can check my layer by clicking on it and see over here it's on the kitchen and bath layer. Here I have the color by layer, and really I want it to be black. But this is the point where if I go into my layer properties over here, I can change it for only this viewport and it could be different everywhere else. So you could either have it gray in your drawing and change it to black in your viewport or vice versa. So I'd want to find my kitchen and bath layer, and here I can see I have my GoToMeeting in front of it so I can't see, but you can see its default layer for the actual layer or color for the layer is 252, which is gray. But then I have my viewport options, my viewport color, and I'm going to set this to be black. But really, all right, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Really black is white. So really I want to set it to be white. Is that right? Having a minute. I know this calls itself black, but I don't want that color. Strange, hold on. It's weird that it's not accepting any color. So I'm going to undo for a second. I know this is all probable because I just did it. So let me make sure I'm in the layer. And I'm going to check something really quick. Really? One second, I'm checking one more thing before I move on. All right, so we'll give that a try. So if I come back in to here and I go to my properties over there, and then I come back down to my kitchen and bath, and I go into viewport color, and I select. All right, so there you go. Did everyone see that turn to black? I think before I was just turning it off in a color that wasn't existing as a true color. So hold on, I see a note there. Not sure what is the difference between a detail and a section. Oh, I will come back to that question in a minute, Mary. Thank you. So I set this to black because this is the floor plan and it should be black for this drawing. So when I print it, then it will be accurate to the floor plan colors. But now it's only in the viewport and we saw that its true color in the model space was gray. So let's see, it's indeed in our floor plan gray in here. So while it's gray in here, because I changed the color in viewport, it's black for my furniture plan and for my floor plan. I'd want to have the same thing. So for my floor plan, let me check and see what color it is here. If it's the gray, and it is gray, I'm going to do the same thing and I can change this to be black in here under the viewport color. So I find my layer, highlight the row. That helps me as I'm pulling over so I don't lose it once I lose the text over here. And I can come into the viewport color, click on the box, and then click on index color 7 and click OK. And now it changed it to black. All right, so then when I go into my lighting and mechanical though, it's still gray. If I double click in here, it's gray, and that means that the black lines of the lighting will show up more clearly. Okay, so that's going to be part of your homework, and that's going to be part of your final. I want to see that you can control your layers in your viewport. I'm not going to accept you copying this drawing to the side and having one with gray furniture and another with black furniture. The point is that you know how to control your layers, so even though it's showing up as gray in model space, you can show it as black in the drawings that needs to be black and gray in the drawings it needs to be gray. It can be either way. Really, it should probably be black in here. It'd give me less changes than I could just change it in the one lighting program to be the gray. But either way, it just shows layer control and I'm fine with it, but you have to show it as one drawing. I want all of your electrical to stay on your floor plan, and I want you to toggle it on and off as well. So I don't want a separate plan for your electrical. You can have a reflected ceiling plan, but all of this should be on the same plan. All right, so what's the difference between a detail and a section? A detail, like a side view, and even though these stairs are dashed, that's just to let you know what the stairs look like so I can get the size of my rise and my run. This is just showing me a side view, almost an elevation, but because it's talking about how to build something, it's not an elevation. It's giving me more detail than that with the callouts. So it's a detailed drawing. It's not cutting through and showing me the interior of how something is. This is a detail as well that is just a plain detail, not a section drawing detail. And a section's technically part of your detail set, but there can be plain details. So here's just a side view showing me the profile of my mantle. Nothing fancy, no dimensions, not telling me anything about how it's being built. And here is my mantle section, which shows me the cut through into the actual mantle, giving me the different boards and nailers and pieces and parts, the ledgers and support braces that are making up the interior of my mantle. So the difference is really what it's showing. Sections are more specifically showing the cut through of an item. So this cuts through, showing me the interior workings of my kitchen cabinet. The detail just shows me some pretty in-your-face information about my mantle or my stair. It's not cutting through, it's not telling me anything extra. It's more just a side or a front elevation, or possibly some type of denotation, not telling me how to build something. So if I go back to my model and look at my next note, let's see, putting our stuff on gray layers. I've shown you how to do that. Add lights that cross-plane to the reflected ceiling plan. Okay, so we talked about that in the ceiling plan. This is where we need to copy over our lights from our mechanical plan, which is part of our furniture plan on our drawing set. So when I go in here, all I need to do is highlight just the lights, not their switching, because I'm not concerned about the switching for the reflected ceiling plan. So I could individually select them all. You get the point. So I would do that for all of the can lights. Only the can lights, not my decorative lighting that hangs off of any type of cord or possibly a stem. Nothing that doesn't cross through, so they actually have to cut the holes for the cans to recess into the ceiling. If it doesn't cross through that plane, don't copy it. So I'm copying all of these lights, even my wall washers, they're cans too. Not the fan, it's on a stem. And then I'll do just this set here, although you know to copy everything. I click copy. I select a point that I can easily copy, so a corner is always good. And then I would come up here and find the corner, and as you can see, it snaps then into the spot that it's supposed to be on my other plan, the exact location, because I found a nice corner. If I would have copied it about the center of this, I would have been left, because it would be empty, I just have copied this already, trying to figure out where I needed to put this guy. So you want to have a good reference such as a corner to place it after you copy it. Alright, so you copied your plan and your ceiling fan. In my case, my ceiling fan light is kind of like a can light, so it's cutting into the ceiling. That just depends. That's information only you as the designer know. So then in this same plan, because I'm trying to cover all the new things, although you'll see it in the drawing and you have all the skills to do this with almost out explanation at this point. I know it's been a while in CAD, so it's definitely worth reviewing, but trying to get a few out of the way, and then there might be some loose ends. You can contact me if you're confused or need help. I will be there all week. So add all the section detail symbols to the floor plan. So this plan then, once we add the can lights in, and then you copy over the frames of your walls, and instead of having the door with the door swing on it, you finish this. You're going to draw a line through and draw a line through here. And it depends on where your door is, so don't get hung up on that. If you have a door in the middle, then you just finish wherever the hole was by your door, because we're just thinking of the header that's cutting in. And then here, you'll do the same thing with this door. You'll complete it. Okay, remember to leave these unhatched. It should look like the drawing I have provided you with. You only have to show flat and slope in one space, although it goes for all of these areas. They only originally showed that in the book, so I'm fine with that. The other changes to your floor plan. So by this point, you should have copied these blocks in for 115 into your bathroom and your kitchen. For students who are in 108, I have not looked at your detail drawings that you've done, except for a few of you, but you all should have had a cabinetry drawing. And so I want you to show this symbol with whatever sheet yours ends up being, and if you copy my layout, it should end up being A5 as well. So, and you should order your drawings as I have on the detail sheet. So your first drawing will be your cabinetry section. It doesn't have to look like mine if you're in 108. It'll be whatever cabinetry you're using and have done. And you'll label it as 1A5 3/4 inch. I'm going to turn on for you now the viewport so you can see the reality of what's going on in the student drawing. You guys had your viewports on, I believe, so if I go into properties over here and I just choose viewport, right now I have it frozen, so when I print I don't see it. But if I unfreeze it, you can see these blue lines. It most likely is black in yours because you haven't frozen anything. So if you have these black lines, they'll show up when you print. And they help you show how things are being spaced in your plan. But here's my first drawing, and you'll have labeled it already for this week's homework. Now you need to add your text. So we can do that by double-clicking, and then this text, I have it at 1 3/4 inch. After I double-click in my paper space, in my model space in my paper space. And then my text to the side, I have it at 2 inches. But I don't want you to get hung up on that. I don't want you to get hung up on the idea of this is 1 3/4. You could have this at 1 3/4. You could have this at 2 inches. It just can't be ridiculous. It's all about labeling and easy readability. So if you were going to triple the size of the circle, it'd be wrong. I will not count that. If you have text that fits with your leader lines and your circles appropriately, and you have text to the side that fits and leaves space for your other drawings appropriately, that's what I'm looking for at this point. You should have the skills to know how to scale or type in the different sizes of your text until it appears appropriate for your drawing. Okay, so I've given you those, but at the same time, you should be able to do it on your own and make some calls on your design aesthetic to some degree in your layout. So if I come back out, this is what I was talking to Nicole specifically for this class. She had been doing some text or dimensioning, and then when she double-clicked, it would disappear, and I said we had to come through and do it this way. But besides the leaders, which I know you do have to do in here, in model space within paper space by double-clicking. So I came through, and you can see using your leader, which I have set up as label. You should all have that. We set that up. If I pull it to the side, it's going to give you the leaders that I used, as long as you're in your paper space, double-clicked into your model space. So that's how you made your leaders. But I think I figured out, as long as you're in one-to-one annotation, let's check and see what happens if I come in here and start my own text and just try to draw it. So if I just try to draw my text and I say, this is a test, and it's at 1/8, it's going to be so tiny, so tiny. So then I say, well, that wasn't big enough. What if I do 2 inches? All right, so let's check what this was, 2 inches. So I bet you if I come in here and I say caps lock, this is, so it does, it matches my text here. Now let's go back into our detail drawings. So you are perfectly viable now. If you don't, it doesn't make sense to you, the whole paper space, model space, as long as you're in one-to-one. This is my thing that I found out this week because mine was in 1/8 for some reason in the other drawing. You should be able to set your text and have it work. Let me check and see what text this is. I want to make sure it's not a secret text that only I have accessibility to. So let's go under annotation, and this is how you can check. So notes. Hey, look, this looks like that one that Claudine had an issue with. Where where it had the weird symbols. And that is really strange. Does everyone have, please, if you have your drawing open, let me know. Is your notes? So can somebody test this maybe for me? I just want to make sure that I don't have notes set up and I don't need to supply you with this text for it to work out the way that it's working. I have notes 115, but I feel like I just made notes 100 times and I see that this is annotative and this one's not. So that will be the difference because the annotative will disappear because it's set up with the scales in that chart that I showed you. But if you had one like this notes, it would work. So which is it? Does anyone have? Not sure. Anyone? All right, you guys are silent. I mean, we can wait and see what happens. Notes. All right, do you have your drawing open, Robin? Then, so can you go into your, let's see which drawing. How about your floor plan? And I'll try it too. Using does your notes text, okay, here's the next question that I have for you. Does your notes have that annotative symbol by it? When I was in that drawing, how I showed if I clicked on it, annotation, there's notes and notes annotated with the little symbol. Does it not have that symbol or does it have that symbol? Because this is a student drawing. I don't remember bringing in new notes. That doesn't mean I didn't. Or bring in a block and then use that text. Because really I'd like you guys to learn both ways. It's a real pain to have to do it from paper space into model space. So if I could teach you to get the fact that you can scale your text and make it look appropriate in the window, that would be great. So
I do have notes 115.
You have notes 115. Do you have that little symbol by it? See that symbol?
No, I do, but no, I don't.
Okay.
But it does say notes 115.
All right. Just one with an S, notes with an S. Okay, so go ahead and see if it functions like mine, where if you're in, say, your floor plan that you already have set up, and right now we have this guy. Let me check what he's on.
I'm sorry, I double checked. It does have that little symbol by it.
1 foot. All right, so it should, oh, it does have the little symbol by it.
Yes, it does.
All right, so for instance, in mine, I just have this guy with the notes. So when it's notes plain, then it's okay, but when it's notes like that and it's annotative, that's when it gets those weird hand symbols that people were dealing with and was all crazy. So what I'm going to do, just in case as a fail-safe for everybody, is within that stair drawing that I have open, I'm going to also copy the words "this is." So copy that and then go into my stair drawing and I'm going to paste it with my clipboard. God willing, we will paste it. Okay, let's go back to here.
So is that a sizing symbol?
What? This stuff?
That little symbol there by the notes 115.
This means annotative scale. When created in annotative, it supports an annotative scale, so it'll scale with your drawing as opposed to this, which you have to type in every time, but I think is easier for people to understand in a way for basic. Right. So if I copy that in, let's see if it actually copied this time, and paste it. So now there, oh, look at that. It changed. Anyone else notice that?
Yes.
It's not the same text.
Not the same.
Wonder why it changed. Annotation. Notes. Might just be because there's nothing set up, but let me see what happens when I go into a layout. Okay, so then if I come in here and I'm in my layout and I start typing and I say notes, disappeared. Oh, I had it on the wrong one. Standard title block, that's why. So if I come through and I choose notes and then I start typing, so what size is this? 6 inches. Oh, I'm going to highlight what size I want up here and highlight the text in here and then say 2 inches. So yeah, that'll work, I think. That's allowing me to scale it to be accurate to the size. Just scale it based off of whatever works in this space, and then I bet if I come in here and then I move this and I turn my ortho off, now it looks a little different. It's not as whimsical as my text was. For some reason it got rid of the attributes, but I think you can change the font if you want to. This is, please don't use that font. That would not be good. But anyway, this is then scalable. And if I do 12 inches here, then it gives me the size that it was in the actual layout. So that's good. So I'm going to undo, 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 and send this with your drawing. So you have all these things in here, and then when you copy these things into your drawing, it'll carry them in. Now, I might rename it because it could be manage textiles, notes, rename, there we go. So I right-clicked and rename, use for final. All right, close. So now you'll know which one it is inside your drawing. Okay, so if we go back into the boathouse then, obviously I want you to add this text. It's all available to you via the PDF. It explains the different pieces and what they are. I added the dimensioning. This is the 3/4 inch scale, so if I click on a dimension in here, you'll see, and I go to annotation, there, dim 96 for 3/4 inch scale. That's what I want on this detail. On this detail, where it's smaller, it would be too big, and I can show it to you, I think, what happens then. Why, even though this one doesn't look great, it's still better. So the text is really huge, and then on top of that, it's okay for bigger areas like that, but then once I get into down here where I'd have this 1/2 inch, oh, it's just a mess. So I'm gonna take the lesser of two evils and use the readability of the smaller text that I've created and dimension style. And then know that there's lots of ways to do details. I didn't do it this way until I worked at a design firm, and it became easier, in my opinion, for people who are super technical and can't stand overlapping items. When you have a giant detail like this, I want you to get in the habit of labeling it on the object. So I call it my stringer, my grain, my post. There's nothing overlapping, it doesn't bother me. When you have a really tiny detail and it's more than one note, maybe more than 6 notes, and you have lots of dimensions, then go ahead and do a notes list like what I'm showing to the side. You'll notice in my friend's PDF, we'll get into her details. She calls everything out and just uses smaller text and dimensions. This is a perfectly viable way to do it. It drives me crazy because you're covering up your drawing and it's hard to read. And though the contractors don't like lists because it's one more step for them to have to do, it's much neater and easier for designers to read the list to the side. So I want to let you know you can do either way. For my class, I'm going to have you do a list. But in the future, if you're confused when you're looking at things on the web that you're researching or any other information, then you can do call-outs all to the side with your leader lines like this. Totally valuable. There's so many ways to do things. I just want to show you all the options, give you one that you have to do for your final, and let you know why and when you're going to use them. The other thing is I was explaining to a student today, I know this isn't this class, but when you're using or doing a detail, I as a student was constantly confused how much detail I was required to do as a designer. And I want you to understand that it all depends on where you work and what field you're in. If you continue your degree and you go towards the architectural side, you're going to be doing work most likely that requires you to have the most dimensioning, every little dimensioning. Maybe you have to tell the casing of this light on top of the fact of its width and overall height. And maybe you have to tell exactly the whole spacing between for each of the adjustable shelves because you're specifying everything about how that's going to be built. For most of us that go into contract or residential, we're going to be specifying things like the 1 1/2 thick Corian countertop, and maybe if it has an OG edge or if it has a squared edge. We're going to talk about our backsplash, the height of that, if it's continuous, if there's any type of detailed stonework above it. We might talk about our footing and talk about if the tile continues, if it's just the plain wood cabinetry, if we added a rubber base. Those are things that designers who are not architecturally headed in the direction of doing more specific contract side documents would give. And they're both, again, viable and things you do every day, but with different amounts of information. So when you're confused on that, it's because you're not using it in an actual application yet. And so what I'm looking for is you understand cutting through an object. You understand that to a degree you have to label things so people know your design intent. For instance, I say melamine interior, melamine. So that means it's just white. It's plain standard grade. I didn't specify a laminate wrap of any type, so it doesn't have any fanciness to it. But you could specify that it's finished on all sides and every interior panel also has matching laminate if when you open the doors you want it to be very beautiful. So there's just details that go into each of your details and it varies by situation and reality. But I think I would like to give you a little more understanding of that and how we use it. So here is my friend's, and she just did the cash wrap detail. So that's when you walk into a store where they keep the cash. And then she did its section of the millwork so that they would know how to build it. Now that means we're sending it to someone who does millwork with our design intent. So if it's walnut, if it locks, how thick the shelves should be. But we're not getting into what kind of hinges necessarily are going into it, how they're going to put it together, what type of glue method. So it really will vary upon your situation. In this, I think I give you a good jumping off point to see how things are ordered and how they're used. Okay, so use that text, the 3/4, my mind, keep up with me, we're bouncing back in thoughts. So use the 3/4 inch text for this. This text style is details, and again, I'll be supplying you with that updated drawing. Let me do that before I forget, because I know one of you will email me. So let me update this. I'm going to come through and mark for removal this guy, and then I'm going to save that stair to the desktop. Save and close them, and then I'll add them. Stair. There it is. And submit. All right, so now that's updated with the information that you need. Let me look at my checklist. All section details and symbols on floor plan. So I want to make sure you have all of those. Oop. not our drawing. So again, I have added a section here. Notice that the arrow points the direction that I'm looking through the cutout of the cabinetry. So think of this arrow as pointing the way your nose is pointing. My nose is looking straight through this cabinetry in my section. You do not want this arrow rotated and pointing that way, otherwise you'd be thinking of looking out this way. So that's why I have it rotated that way. Here, I'm looking through the mantle this way, so I have the arrow rotated and at the top of my denotation, but with the text readable from the way that I'm viewing the drawing set. So all of it is running this way, just like the pipe chase lettering. All right, let's talk about line types, because I've used a couple of different line types. Might be a good time to, I was going to say, mark where we're at on the video or how long we've been going so you know where to reference for the video, because I'm not giving you this typed, but I know some of you are going to want to write this down. So either write it down or write down the timestamp of how long we've been in class and fast forward in that video. So for our line types, let me close out of some of this crazy stuff. For my section, I have chosen, let's look at our layers again. I closed out of it. So this guy, oh, here it is. That's where I want to be in layer properties. So here's my layer properties, and it says center. So if I went to adjust it, you can see their center. How I got this was I went to other, and these are all options given in CAD. So you might not have center loaded in right now. You'll probably have dashed and by block and these first two. So you'll go up to here, your properties, your layer properties. And then where it says by layer line type, you're going to drop down the menu. You're going to go to other, load, and then you're going to find center. So here's center. You're going to click OK, and it says reload because I already have it. So then it'll load it into this box, and then you're going to click center and click OK. And that's with the line selected, and it will apply it to it. All right, so you can load in any line type from there that you want from that list given, but I specifically for my section am using a longer dash with a short dash to represent my section. For this detail, it's just a solid line with a leader line because I'm not cutting through anything. The section line is showing that I am cutting through the plane, and here I have kind of a footing block that just says it ends here, the cut. So I added a small rectangle that I hatched with just a solid hatch. It could be non-solid. It could be any of these options. I'm not going to be too picky on that. If you think it's easier to read it like that, I don't care. Just make sure you add the rectangle, come out, and then create a circle with the line and two text options. Again, I don't want you asking me, how big is that? I want you to use your deductive logic skills to say, okay, if the door looks about that size, then I want to come up to home. And wow, my tools are way over here, but they'll probably be over here on your drawing. Circle. And I can start drawing a circle. And you'll have the PDF. And then draw my line. And then how do I make this symbol? All right, I want you to work through drawing. I'm supplying you with the whole stair. You can give me an outline of a shape. So I'd come out to the side, or really this is the easier way. Come out straight a little bit, arbitrary, okay? Then I would go ahead and copy it to the side, and then I would rotate it and make sure my ortho's on. Because my ortho's on down here, when I rotate and pull down, it's there, okay? Then I'd move it here. Oh, no. See what it did there? I grabbed a pick point. So move about the end point and snap there. Then I would take this line and I would mirror it. And then I click no because I don't want it to delete the first line. Then I would grab another line tool to continue and join the points that are left over. Ooh, you sneaky guy. Snapping. Gabe. All right, so then from there, I could go ahead and delete this. I don't need him anymore. He was just a reference line. As well as I could trim out the center of my circle. So I go to the trim tool and I would say select the circle, enter, and trim off the pieces that I don't want. And then I would simply hatch in the rest of the boundary. So I could type in hatch or click hatch. I'll just do solid. Okay, and then I would draw my line, and this is going to be you from scratch, so I'll help you out with showing you, but I'm not going to give you specifics. It's part of the final and the fact that you have 2 more weeks to do it. So when I come over, I could first select this if I already loaded it in, so I choose center and then I could start drawing my line. All right, so there, that's already done. Or if I had drawn it before, I could come in, load the center line and have it. But really, I want to snap this guy to the edge and make this solid. So line, and then I could do by layer and have it be solid. Okay, and now I have a section symbol minus the little rectangle guy, which you just copy or create a small rectangle and then bring it up to the end so it finishes off telling me where it's going to hit. And then I hatch this guy in. Now, if you haven't used it in a long time, instead of circle, we grab the rectangle tool and arbitrarily draw a rectangle. These symbols, well, I say arbitrarily. The rectangle is arbitrary, the line is arbitrary. The circle, there are a lot of rules that go with the contract set. So the circle is 1-inch diameter once you set it to annotative, and it has some rules to it. Not for our project. It's very confusing. It's like the annotative text, and that would be advanced CAD. So this is fine. This will carry you through to the rest of your career, just using a circle and judging off of the size that they have, or even measuring it with a scale and then scaling your circle in AutoCAD. You can do that as well. I'd rather do that than confuse you with 100 more lessons on annotative scale. So for basic, I just want you to match the drawing. I want to see that you can draw that shape and make it look good, a good readable size. Again, my text is at 3 inches in here, so a little bit bigger than the text that I have for my detailed drawings. That's because it's a bigger drawing, so if I'm not doing it to scale up and I want to be able to read it on my floor plan, I have to do it a little bigger because the whole drawing is overall bigger. So if I go back to my model, that teaches you this part of it. Notice there's 2 sections, and you can copy this symbol. So think, work smarter, not harder, right? And we move this guy over here, and then I'm going to take this guy and rotate him about the circle center and pull up. Boom, I'm done with that. I'll rotate this guy about the circle center and pull down. Done with that. And then just move my rectangle. So you don't have to redraw everything. You don't have to recreate this top. Just move what you have existing. Same way if you did this one over here first and then moved it to the other place. Okay, so here's a detail out here. Again, label them. So I had 8. I want this to be 5. Details should match whatever sheet it ends up being on. Dates should be all consistent. Save. All right, so let me check those off. Add walls to floor plan, match furniture plan. Okay, so I showed you that we added our walls to our reflected ceiling plan. They should also be on your floor plan, and they should also be on your furniture plan. They should also be on your floor plan. Now your floor plan is meant to show architectural things such as sections and elevation symbols. Your furniture plan is what I'll call your decorative plan. Now we have our electrical layers on, so this is functioning as both our electrical plan, mechanical plan, lighting plan, and our floor plan. This is where you must have these electrical items on the layer that I talked about last week. So if I see it, it's all on a lighting and electrical. You should have it on layers. I know a lot of you know how to use layers and are not following through with that. It's a huge part of AutoCAD and keeping your drawing clean. So in order to copy it and toggle it on and off in your furniture plan and have one drawing, you're gonna have to make sure you had that. I don't want to see a drawing copied over to the left that has those on and then this one with it off. All right, so you'll notice all that happened in here is under my layers, properties, if I go to lighting and electrical, I have my viewport frozen. If I unfreeze it, there they are. If I freeze it, they're gone. Unfreeze, they're there. Freeze it, they're gone. All right, so that's what I'm looking for you to do, is make sure in your viewport it's off for your furniture plan. And then in your lighting and electrical plan, mechanical plan, it's on with the grayed out furniture. All right. Okay. So I'm trying to think. 1 second. Let me see if there's anything that I'm missing. I think there's one more step. This is all right. So keep with me. For your electrical plan, and I didn't make this step yet in creating these today. So you're going to want to make sure that your furniture is off in this plan and it's only showing the switching and the reflected ceiling lighting and all of your receps around the room. So what do I have to do? I can make this easy on my life if my furniture is all on a layer. Can't promise you that it is, but we'll see. So make sure again, I don't know exactly where you're all at with your viewports and having them on or off, but if I go up into my properties and I scroll down, I can see that my viewport is frozen, so now they're on, and once those are on, it's easier to click in the viewport. So let's click in here and see house furniture. Okay, so let's hope that it's only that way and I can turn my house furniture off. So I click in here and then I come up to house furniture and I scroll over and I viewport freeze it. Perfect. So cabinetry stays, it's attached to the walls and the floor, it stays. My credenza and my table are gone. That should be how yours is too. Okay, and I will send this updated PDF tonight. And then the same for this guy. So again, more practice with layers. Okay, he's good. His bed is gone. I just didn't notice I had that table on another one. So I turned off my house furniture. I put all my furniture on a layer, except for the kitchen and bath. They need to be on their separate layer from the furniture because they're part of the house in a way. So I put my bed on my house furniture. I put my desk, my dresser. Make sure you're using your layers appropriately. Okay. Make sure all the walls are hatched appropriately. I don't want to see black and then see this one be randomly dashed or spotted or anything besides solid when it comes to the mechanical plan. And then obviously for the ceiling plan, I did say this will be different because we have to see our headers of our doors, so that's fine. But then in the furniture plan, it needs to be solid again. All right, so make sure things are hatched and finished. Anything that was left undone from a past assignment where I told you to correct it and you haven't gotten to it, and sure you got a B, but you had to finish something, go back and finish that. I will be reviewing all of your homework and all the notes I've made for your final. Make sure you had your updated stair. I'll be checking for that this week. Everything fits in the screen. Everything's nice and neat. Your text is nice and neat. All right. Stair, detail, block dimension. So again, we can go back to our details. Here's our stair. You will double click in the viewport. If you don't remember, I mean, it has been long enough that we'll just talk about this basic. So 3/4 inch equals 1 foot 0 inch. That's going to be the scale, and if I change it now, it's going to get all crazy on me, but make sure you set it up in the beginning. You zoom into your stair and unlock, and then you set it to be 3/4, so it's going to zoom out. I'm going to set it to 3/4, and yay, because I made my text not annotative, it worked out for me without worrying about it. Okay? So make sure they match whatever I have set up for the scale, 3/4, 3/4, 1, and 1/2. Oh, side note. In order to get these texts to be the same, notice that I do have viewports for these instead of doing this. Instead of having it pulled down to show the text beneath it, because that text is bigger. So what I did instead was I cropped this above towards the detail, and then I added a viewport, and then I made this viewport match the 3/4 inch scale. So this is a note. Write this note down. This viewport for the text is at 3/4 inch scale so that it matches the text on all of the sheets. So here it's at 3/4 inch because this drawing's at 3/4 inch. I didn't want my text to be huge like this, what it would come in as if I just made the viewport bigger. So I created a new viewport with the text and then positioned it how I wanted underneath my detail. The same for this. Now, smarter, not harder. All I did was copy my viewport then once I made one of them and then zoom in and set the scale to 3/4 inch. Notice that this viewport takes up this whole space. It's really one. Set your text before you move it over this. Because as you notice, if I move this over and I don't have it set up and I start double clicking, it's going to default to the bigger of the two viewports. So pull your block out to the side, create a viewport, or I'm assuming you're going to create this one first, and then copy it over. And then you can come in, and if it's unlocked, which mine, I'm trying to be good about my drawing, I unlock it. Notice it's this lock, not that lock. And I zoom out to get my text, and I had to create new text for the side view. And then I set it to 3/4 inch, and then I move it. All right, so then I move it because I'm done, and I position it accordingly. And I want it to probably line up these two text items. So I can just crop it until I'm happy with it, and then move this over until the text aligns better. All right, keep everything neat and pay attention to your scales. These will be 3/4 inch for the text, and the drawings will actually be at the 1 and 1/2 inch scale. This text is 3/4 inch as well to match the text over there. This is fine, it's all 3/4 inch. Add all text, yep. Add drawing sheets, you've got that. Scales, cleanliness, should match closely, yep. I think we've covered it all. On 15, add walls to reflected ceiling plan. All right, so for you, things that I need to do is I'm going to come up with a quiz that's going to cover some things about sheets and lettering and your final project and leader lines and scales. Some of you will do good by having a quiz added to your grade. I want to make sure, where's my highlighted list? So I updated the stair block for you. I will update the PDF packet when I get home because I've saved it on here. I just need to load it back on. I'm going to come up with a rubric for the final that is super detailed so that you know what I want. I feel like saying match the PDF should be enough. And then on top of the PDF, you will also have the presentation of your 3D SketchUp file. It's already done. People are giving me looks here. Oh my gosh. What, adding the details? But you already have done all of the, well, you should have for the last session have done the work for having all of your symbols in and then having all of the circles with the leader lines already in, so it should be text really. Organizing it should be fairly easy with your viewports because you'll copy your sheets over and then you can copy your viewports. All right. Well, your SketchUp model should already be set up with your views from the prior week, and that's what you're turning in is your SketchUp model. So if you go out to but you have 2 weeks to do this too. So you have this week and then you have the part of next week. We could not do a quiz. Would that be helpful to you guys? Okay, so everyone's saying they don't want a quiz. Do we need to do anything with the deck stairs on the sheets since we had to change it out in SketchUp after we made these sheets? Yes, that was putting the deck stair was in last week's homework. So I gave you the block for the floor plan view of it, and then you would snap it in CAD to those areas on the floor plan and the site plan. And then scrolling up, how do you get the text to line up down the number row? Robin, were you talking about in a sheet? How do you get the text to line up in a sheet view or in
Yes, where
just
you
how
had
I
the
was?
cabinet, the cross section of the cabinet drawing.
All right.
Yeah,
In
like the
here?
1 through whatever, I can't read the number. Yeah, 1 through 10 or no, well, those two, but the text where you're listing like what the molding parts they're using and all
Oh,
that.
well, if you do, so let's say I'm going to start over from scratch with this one. If I was to start with this, it's the text that I did was just your multi-line text.
Oh, okay, and so it just
And
wrapped it
yeah,
around and kept
it
it lined as it
automatically
went.
does them in
Okay.
order, and then you just space it how you want it to be. So it was just
Okay, okay,
multi-lines. Nope, yep, you don't have
okay.
to align a billion rows of text. All right. So on top of organizing these, which you already have the first 4 or 5 of them, minus the new symbols done. So your site plan, your floor plan, your furniture plan, except with the symbols called out, your ceiling plan, except with copying over your walls, and your lights. Lighting, you should have done this for this last week. And then this will just be zooming in on them basically, so they're to scale, and then turning the colors. So in addition to the PDF, if you go onto the site, it says that we're going to just be presenting our SketchUp models. So where you're at in your class, and if this is enough for the final and everyone is panicking at this point, then it can be enough for our final. There was going to be one more piece which we would get next week, which would be to use layout. But I think some people here are going to literally have a panic attack. So if it's enough, then what I'm requiring for the second part is you can do as much as you want at this point in addition to, or as little as you want. Whatever your SketchUp model was turned in for your elevations with the digital walkthrough, we're going to show the class your digital walkthrough. So you just need to make sure to turn in that copy with the digital walkthrough complete and then be able to talk about why you chose anything, if you had a real ideology behind it. Some of you might have just picked the first things that you saw in the actual SketchUp library or warehouse, which is fine, but you can just talk about the process, talk about if it's been difficult for you or what you've learned. So it's going to be fairly relaxed presenting. You'll just show your set to me that it's done, and then we'll just use that time to walk through our SketchUp models. In fact, I might not have you share your sets with the class. We might just use the SketchUp models. So I have 14. I'll show you mine. Start using SketchUp. Oh no, the whale of death. I'm panicking, but that's normal. That's true, Robin. All right, here's my model now. I added some trees in because Nicole Catlett made me feel jealous of her crazy site plan she had going on. So I added my own trees in. I had a little porchy area and a deck area that they could sit at with some reclaimed boxes. And then I would go ahead and turn my presentation on by going to View Animation and hit play. I have no idea what I have my scene set up to be right now. So it's going to show you my view of my deck, and I have extra views because I just did extra views. So hold on, I think SketchUp's trying to get through my animation but struggling because these are not my scenes. It's like really thinking about it. I don't know if I'm zoomed in or what's going on. Let me see my, right now I feel like I'm just a creepy window stalker in my house instead of a person walking through it. So if I go into my scenes, let's see what's going on in my model. Layers, I don't even see scenes. So I'll go up to Window, Manage Trays, Default Tray, make sure Scenes is on, Close. And here's my scene. Okay, it should be okay. And then View, Animation, Settings. Set that to 2. Click Enter. And then View, Animation, Play. I wonder if it's just this computer trying to keep up with me. I see something happening, but you see that down there? It's like it's scrolling at the edge of the screen. Okay, there we go. So yeah, we're just going to go through the views of your house and have it playing while you talk about it. And you can stop and pause it if you want. We're going to have, about 10 minutes. That might even be too much for just showing your models, as much or as little as you want to share in 10 minutes or less. And then you turn in your set to me. So if that's enough, then that's enough. I'll let it be enough. The other thing we were going to use or do is still going. Okay, we were going to use and figure out more about the layout that comes with our SketchUp automatically. I'll just open it for you and maybe I'll post a video on it. We'll let it start. Okay, close. And then so you could choose your paper size, letter, landscape. So it's very similar to AutoCAD sheets, or if you want to have a preset. So a shot, here you could insert a shot of your building and the description and dialogue for your scenes. And it actually gives you the opportunity, and I'm not going to show you how to do it tonight, but to have a video playing in the background. So what I was going to have you do is do an 11 by 17 with a video in the corner of your house scrolling through, and then just a couple images on top of that copied and pasted to the side. Just to show you another presentation tool you could use for 108 or future in contract or really any project that gives you your video on the same sheet as your stuff, and then what happens is when you pause it, you can just print it with wherever the video is at, and it functions as a materials board. You could even have materials or a presentation board of such type. But if it's too much, then we won't do it. I just want you to know that it's available. And then we won't have a quiz. And then we'll stick with finishing our drawing set, as well as, like I said, your SketchUp model. At this point, you should be up to date with your views. If you're not, we can work on that in this week, because I will have my class hours starting on Monday. I'll be in the building. I'll probably get in here at about 8 or so, because that's when my husband will go to work. So we're carpooling to here since he works down here. And then I'll be here. And if you want to make an appointment for your own personal time for that week, you can email me as well, so that it's just us and not multiple people. A week is a long time. And like I said, for your SketchUp model, you can do as much or as little. For my friends who are having crashing issues, if a little is a little, then that's what it is. But if you at least have your furniture in there and the very basic things, you're still going to do fine with your grade. I'm not judging you on how beautiful your model is. I'm judging you on the processes and your ability to follow instruction in this class. So now 108, that doesn't mean you. For you, I'm not necessarily judging you on how beautiful it is either, but I do expect there to be a little bit more design sense going into your lighting plans and going into your furniture layouts. So we'll see when I finish the rubric. I have to write it to both classes to be the same, but it should be good to see the variance too, to see the 108 as they're a little bit more progressive class versus the 115 where we're more working on basic skills and kind of see everyone's models. So I'm excited for that part of it. We're talking about whether or not the final will run on the 5th, or if, even though I'm telling you there'll be a presentation, it ends up being that you turn in your files and that's it, and possibly a discussion board that you have to post to by a certain time. The design, what is it that's going on here, guys? It's just the design department is having a show.
It's the student's show.
The student show is going on at that time, and I don't want anyone to feel like they can't make it to that, but I would really like everyone to work with each other. So I'm going to make that decision this week as to if it's just going to be something you turn in or not, and I mean early this week. So by Tuesday I'll have made that decision, and we'll see. All right, so no quiz. I'll be updating the PDF later tonight, and I'll be working on putting up the rubric for your final presentation. But now that you have that set of PDFs, you know what you're working towards. If you have any questions and you want your own time, you can email me. If you want to just have a lab session with multiple people and you don't mind, and I get like 5 calls in one day, we can go to a meeting, or I'll be here in person. So if you live nearby, then you can come here too and work from the lab, and I'll be available to you all the time. So any questions? Let's see. I feel like the kitty looks. That's funny. No questions? You're going to save it for email? All right, fair enough. I'm going to go
I have
ahead.
a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, are you still planning on having labs on Tuesday nights like you've been doing?
Yep. I will be
Okay.
there for Tuesday nights as well.
Okay, great.
Has so much in it, doesn't show everything. No walls, no trees. You're saying it has so much in it, it's almost crashing where half the building disappears as you rotate it? Is that what you're saying, Josie?
Mine's doing that too. It just started.
To go invisible in areas?
Yes, like I turn it and all of a sudden the wall disappears as you turn.
Uh-huh. Yeah, mine was doing that as well, and it comes and goes. So I'll open it and close
Oh,
it,
okay.
and then it'll be there, and then sometimes it's not. And this has a lot of detail in it with the roof off. So if I go to my window default tray, show tray, and I toggle my roof off, where are you, roof? I really wish it was alphabetical. There must be a setting for that somewhere. Okay. And my second story. Oh, I know what else I'm going to put on the website for you tonight. For those of you who don't have the SketchUp bathroom, I'm going to put that for my 115 students, this block right here. So then you can copy it and paste it in place. I have that written down. So other than that, I added details, a chair and some lights, and then it really isn't a ton though, you know. So if you keep going with details, then maybe if it's easier for you, I mean, I know that you have your walkthrough, but if it's easier for you to do screenshots or instead, or JPEGs is what I really mean to say, export some more interesting views if you want to add views for more detail and it's just crashing on you, I'll accept that as well. You still have to have your walkthrough, but if you want to just show views to the class or in a final presentation format, just sending a bunch of images in a folder, I'll accept that as well. Okay, so I'll let you know Tuesday about if we're going to run the class on the 5th. All right, any more questions? If not, I'm going to let you guys go a little bit early. All right, okay, have a good night. Go ahead and call or email with any other questions. I'll end this meeting and start making the video.